Two of the Orlando Magic's all-time greats head to the Hall together. The beef is squashed today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is August 21st. It will be August 22nd, 2025. My name is Philip Rossman. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Credentialed member of the Orlando Magic media since the 2012 season. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, two of the Orlando Magic's all-time greatest players are heading to the Hall together. How one of the biggest beefs in Magic history finally got squashed and what it all means coming up here in just a moment. Plus, we'll talk about Franz Wagner finding other ways to impact games for Team Germany. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. No matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload, we truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. You can make Locked On Magic even bigger part of your day by becoming one of our Orlando Magic dailies. Listening to the podcast 5 days a week. Get in the habit now, because once the season starts, we are going to be all gas, no breaks to the NBA Finals or wherever the season ends. You can check it out wherever you download podcasts. It's all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. I've been teasing this. I've talked a little bit about it over the last 2 days. I want to thank Gavin Shaw of Locked On Knicks once again for having me on his show. We aired that over the last 2 days to break down the Magic-Knicks matchup and what that matchup could be. But I wanted to make sure I addressed this news separately and give it its fair due. As some of you who are too obsessed with these things might be aware, like I am, Dwight Howard will be inducted into the Naismith Memorial Pro Basketball Hall of Fame in 2 weeks. The Hall of Fame enshrinement ceremony is September 6th in Springfield or in Massachusetts. And it is a day to celebrate. I'll probably try and do another episode looking at Dwight Howard's career and all the complications with it. But I truly believe this is a weekend to celebrate. I truly believe we should be celebrating Dwight Howard's legacy. He is ours. He's obviously in the Orlando Magic Hall of Fame. I believe his number 12 jersey should be hanging in the rafters after we get through Penny and T-Mac and Nick Anderson, of course. We could talk about the history stuff and all that and some of the hard feelings that still exist, but Dwight Howard is one of the all-time greatest players in Magic history, and I am very, very excited to see him in the Hall of Fame. It is an honor that he deserves. It was about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, that the Hall of Fame announced who the presenters would be for the Hall of Fame. And the way it works is a member of the Hall of Fame presents you on your enshrinement. It's usually someone that has some significance in your career or, some connection to you. And Dwight Howard's presenters were announced as Patrick Ewing, a former great center, one of the assistant coaches for Dwight Howard when he's with the Orlando Magic. Dominique Wilkins, Atlanta Hawks legend. Dwight Howard's from Atlanta. Dennis Rodman, one of the all-time great rebounders in NBA history, and Robert Parrish. A great list. Patrick Ewing was certainly a no-brainer, and I'm very glad that Patrick Ewing is getting that connection and getting the chance to present his protege into the Hall of Fame. But missing from that list is obviously the greatest connection that Dwight Howard has. A fraught one that has had its twists and turns and has a very difficult relationship. It would make sense that one great Orlando Magic center would present another great Orlando Magic center into the Hall of Fame. It would make sense, just logically, just spiritually, Shaquille O'Neal is the person who should present Dwight Howard into the Hall of Fame. And so it was very good to hear this weekend that Shaq confirmed to Rachel Nichols during the broadcast of the Big Three in Dallas that he would be presenting Dwight Howard in the Hall of Fame, and the Hall of Fame made it official earlier this week. These two have had as fraught a relationship as Magic fans have had with Dwight Howard since he left. No doubt, Shaq has at times bristled at Dwight Howard. In every way, like, Shaq casts a shadow on everything about this franchise. That he is such a humongous figure, such a big person, especially in the early history of this franchise. Everything is measured up against him. For those that were like uncertain whether the Magic should retire Shaquille O'Neal's jersey, quite frankly, if you're not retiring Shaq's jersey, you can't retire anyone else's jersey, because every decision and everything the Magic do is compared to either the teams that Shaquille O'Neal was such a key part of, or compared to Shaq himself. Shaq did this, Shaq did that. He is the measuring stick of the franchise. And for a young center drafted number 1 to this franchise, Shaq is the standard. And in many ways, Dwight embraced that. Dwight Howard donned the Superman cape that Shaquille O'Neal claimed, and Shaquille O'Neal made part of his persona. And unfortunately, Shaq has a leadership brand of tough love. That's what his heroes did to him. That's what Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Wilt Chamberlain did to him in a story that he told on the big podcast with Shaquille O'Neal a few months ago. He believed that he needed to be distant and tough on the rising centers, to inspire them, to make them angry, to fight for his approval as, I don't know, I forget what Shaq calls it, but the triple certified, whatever it is. Shaq is the standard and the approval that you're fighting for. And his goal, as he mentioned, as he said, and as he's continued to say, he was tough on Dwight Howard because he saw greatness in him. I never thought that was effective. I think that's just a very old school way of doing things. And as a leader, you need to always adjust your leadership to the person you're trying to reach. And Dwight Howard, I don't think, ever truly responded to the tough love that Shaq gave him. I don't think that's how Dwight is wired. Dwight wants praise. For better or worse, Dwight is a people pleaser, and he didn't understand, I think, that tough love. Having said that, I also think Shaq is currently covering for himself a little bit, because I think there was some legitimate beef that he thought Dwight was taking a lot of his thunder in Orlando and kind of pushing out his legacy, which was never going to be the case. And I think that just Dwight's approach to the game was so different than Shaq's. And honestly, like, I would say, having grown up and watched a lot of those games, I think the standard that Shaq tried to set Dwight to was an archaic standard to begin with. The game had just changed so differently. And at the end of the day, Dwight wanting Shaq's approval as anyone should. Dwight, I think, changed his game for the worse at times and didn't accept what he was so good at and how great of a player he is, a Hall of Fame player at that. Regardless of any of those things, Dwight was always in Shaq's shadow. Shaq always saw Dwight as a player he needed to bring along. And no matter what miscommunications or what beef there was, their careers are over. Dwight is still playing in the Big Three, but his basketball career is over. They are both Hall of Famers. They're both standing on the mountaintop. There's no more games to be played. There's no more motivation to give. And so it is heartening to see that, yes, Shaq has buried the beef and has publicly said how much he respects Dwight Howard and his career and all that he accomplished, even if it may not have reached the pinnacle that certainly Shaq reached. But it will be great 2 weeks from Saturday to see Shaquille O'Neal standing beside and behind Dwight Howard as he's inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. It will be great to see two of the absolute titans of this franchise in Springfield together, enshrined at the pinnacle of individual success in the NBA or in basketball in general. It is an honor that Dwight Howard deserves, and it is an honor that I'm very glad Shaquille O'Neal wants to be a part of. to shepherd Dwight into this phase of his career, into this historical gallery. And I, for one, cannot wait to hear Dwight's speech, and I cannot wait to celebrate Dwight Howard's career in 2 weeks for this Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Let's now move on, though, to the next Hall of Famers. Germany played Spain in an exciting game, but one that shows how much work Franz still has to do to become the star the Magic need him to be. We'll talk about that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by friends over at Game Time. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat fees, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worrying out of buying. Game Time is the official ticketing partner of our friends at Locked On MLB. So if you're trying to get to George Steinbrenner Field before the end of the Rays season to check the Rays out, this is your ticket to the game. If you're tired of endless scrolling, trying to find the best deal, Game Time Zone Deals pick the best seats in your section for you. Makes it so easy to find the best seats in the house. And with their digital panoramic view, you'll know exactly what the field looks like before you get to the stadium. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. This is a big year for Franz Wagner. It's a big year for everybody. It's always a big year. But this is a year where, for the first time, the Magic's two stars, the Magic are fully invested in their two stars. Obviously, Franz on his max contract this year. Paolo will get his next year. They pushed their chips in. They have put a lot in the center of the table to bet on Paolo and Franz taking this huge step up, this big step into the limelight. This is a big season for the Orlando Magic and for Franz Wagner. It is a season where we need to see him obviously take some steps in his game, and we're going to get to that step here in a minute. It is a big season to see if Franz can truly become a star-level player. We saw hints of it obviously last year, but now there's a little bit more pressure. Now the Magic are trying to get to another level, and we know Franz is going to get his points. It doesn't matter really how poorly he shoots. He is going to find ways to score. And that's been apparent throughout these 5 exhibition games that Germany has played so far this year before Eurobasket, before we get to the Eurobasket tournament. Franz Wagner is going to find ways to impact games. The question is still whether he will impact games regardless of his shooting percentage. And look, we're going to get to the shooting. We have to talk about it. But Thursday's game was a great example of how Franz still impacts games, or how Franz can still grow to impact games, even if his shot isn't quite where we want it. Final stats for the game. Let's start there. Germany won 106-105 in overtime thanks to a really tough layup by Dennis Schroeder, where Schroeder struggled a bunch against Serbia and Franz dominated against Serbia. This game, Franz struggled a little bit and Schroeder helped carry the way to the end. We'll get to some of the issues here in a minute. But Franz finished the game with 19 points. He shot just 5 for 14 from the floor, including 0 for 6 from 3. Again, we're going to get to that. And made 9 of 13 threes. The bigger thing for me was that he added 7 assists. He had 5 rebounds and 7 assists. Even though Wagner was not scoring as efficiently and as effectively as we expect him to, he was still making plays. He was still a threat. He still forced Spain's defense to change and shift to deal with him. And considering that this Germany team is not the same Germany team we've seen in the last few years, they are a lot smaller. Their shooting has been much more inconsistent. It's not just Franz struggling to shoot. this team is struggling to shoot in a way that they have not struggled during this 3-year stretch that we've been watching. And so now, like Franz, who's on the ball a lot more in this offense with Alex Mumbrou, pretty much he and Dennis Schroeder are the only two players consistently attacking off the dribble and creating. Now Franz is in the same spot that Paolo was in and that Franz has been in too, but is still learning how to deal with. How to learn to make the right pass, how to make the right play, how knowing when to attack and how to help keep others involved. Those 7 assists are not a small thing. Look, he averaged a career high 4.7 assists per game last year. He took a step in that direction last year. He had 9.3 potential assists per game, which is right in line with Paolo Banchero's numbers. Franz still can move the ball very effectively. And obviously, like, you're not going to get 9 assists per game from him, but seeing Franz bump up to 5 or 6 assists per game is not a crazy thing. But last year, Wagner averaged only 41.1 passes per game. That ranked behind both Suggs and Banchero, and incidentally, behind Desmond Bane. While Franz, I think, is a solid passer, typically his drives end in his shooting. He is not necessarily a driver looking to create and suck the defense in to kick out. He is looking to score. And that's typically how things work for him. So seeing him have 7 assists, move the ball effectively, get into the paint and kick back out or kick out or dump the ball off, which happened a few times in this game. That is a big deal. In fact, last year, Wagner had 7 or more assists in just 11 games. The Magic went 10-1 in those games. So when Wagner is able to make passes, get in the paint and kick out, he becomes very effective. Getting to the line is also a big deal, and that is something Franz has been really good at in these exhibition games. He's been getting to the line a lot. Germany in general has been getting to the line a lot. This Germany team is reminding me way too much of the Magic, where they don't shoot the ball from 3 particularly well, and they get to the line a ton. We'll see what happens when the tournament begins next week. But last year, Wagner averaged 5.2 free throw attempts per game. He's one of 33 players in the league to average 5 or more free throw attempts per game. He gets to the line a healthy amount, but he can still get better. He drew only 1.2 fouls per game off of his 13.3 drives per game. He averaged a team high in drives per game, according to Second Spectrum. But for reference, Paolo Banchero drew 2 fouls per game on 11.9 drives per game. Still a lot of area for Franz to improve on as a driver, to keep getting shots, to keep getting points, even when he may not be shooting it particularly well. This is what stars do. This is what the best players in the league do. They find ways to put pressure on defenses. And obviously, Franz, he's not a battering ram like Paolo Banchero is. He's not in the paint to draw fouls. But in this kind of a game where the shot isn't falling, where the team needed him to create, Franz found a way to still impact the game. Now, again, like, this context is important. Germany is not the Magic. The Magic are a better team than Germany. They're going to get Franz some easy shots. They're going to be better shooters and more reliable outlets and better secondary creators. The Magic are set up to take everything we're seeing from Franz with the German national team and make them better. In many ways, what Franz is facing with the German national team right now is exactly what he faced with the Magic last year, which can still be pretty effective, do not get me wrong, but also leaves him cramped for space and cramped for trust. And that's still a thing this German national team is working on. But even though there are these positive signs, everything always comes back to shooting. So let's talk about it, because I think it's time to finally be concerned. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. Franz Wagner is struggling to shoot. Like, there's no getting around it. There's no sugarcoating it. He shot 0 for 6 from 3 in this game. And I would say this game, he got his best 3-point looks. He got some catch and shoot looks. And I can tell you the form looks good. The hitch is gone. I can tell you all these things. It doesn't change the numbers. In 5 exhibition games, Franz Wagner is 3 for 24 from 3. 3 for 24 by my math. That's not good. Like that's, 3 for 25 would be 12%. So he's a little bit better than 12% from 3. He went 1 for 3 the first game. He went 0 for 3 the second game. 2 for 6 the third. Or 2 for 6 the third. And then 1 for 9. I want to say 1 for 9 in the. Yeah, it's not good. Whatever the math is, it's not good. And ultimately, like, there's been a lot of people in the comments, and yes, I do read the comments, who are like, you need to get off Franz about the shooting. It is what it is. And to a certain extent, you're right. And again, I want to make this clear. Like, Franz is a very good basketball player, even without the shooting. Even if he doesn't make threes at a consistent clip, he's a very good shooter, or he's a very good player that's going to find ways to contribute. That's why, like, the passing thing is like, getting the passing thing up is really important. Getting the free throws up is really important. You got to find ways to supplement this and still be a threat. You can't be afraid at any moment. That's what kills the non-shooters around the league, is when you get afraid. And I would say this too about Franz. He has not been afraid to shoot. I honestly, there's 1 3 in this game that he hesitated to shoot, and that was bad. But he's been unafraid to let it fly. And I'm fine with that. At this stage, I'm fine with that. Still exhibition season, get that out of your system, take better shots. But at the end of the day, like, if you're going to be a perimeter player in basketball in this age, you've got to be willing and able to shoot the ball. You got to make some shots. You can't be this bad. And I want to reserve judgment for when we get to games that actually count. But this is something that doesn't change. And so I would say, like, his rhythm looks a little slow. It still looks like he's getting his shot form down. So maybe it just takes one going in and then another going in, and then everything's okay again. And maybe it'll just be like really streaky, where he'll have a bunch of games where he struggles and he'll go through a hot streak and a hot stretch. But we can't dismiss this as something we can ignore. And we have 5 games now. It's not a huge sample. It's obviously with the FIBA line and the FIBA ball. It's a thing. And again, I want to reserve judgment. I want to get to games that count and matter and aren't, Franz sometimes looks like he's going at half speed or experimenting or trying things in these exhibition games. There's a lot that they're trying to get down, and the way Germany's using him is very, very different. He's taking a lot of bad threes. This game against Spain was the first time he took some good threes that was like, those are good threes. They're setting him up for 3. He doesn't have to work for those threes. They're coming to him, and he missed them. So I still think there's something to work with and something to improve, but shooting is the results. Like, it's about the results. And again, like, you're not giving up on Franz just because he's struggling to shoot. Like, he's still really good. He's still doing really good things. But there's still a lot more work to do. And very clearly, this is something that he wants to be a part of his game. It's something that the Magic need to be part of his game. And it just, so far, it hasn't come together. Just plain and simple. So far, it hasn't come together. And whether that lasts into the fall and into October, we don't know. It is fair to say Franz's play in these international tournaments has previewed his shooting in the NBA. He shot very well in Eurobasket in 2020. What year is it now? 2022? 2022. He shot really poorly in the 2023 World Cup and the 2024 Olympics. We got to see him make some shots now. We got to see him make these shots. And Germany needs him to make these shots. Germany's not as strong as they've been. And we'll talk more about the German basketball outlook next week. I have that interview in the can. This is not as strong of a German team as we've seen over the last 2-3 years. They should still medal. They should still compete for medal. They're obviously still good enough to do that. Spain is on the downswing, but they're no pushover, and they won that game on the road. And a tough environment, good adversity. They found a way. even though they struggled to end the fourth quarter and Franz missed two really big three-pointers that were fairly open and fairly good shots that he has to make. As much as we don't want to obsess over Franz's shooting, it is the thing that could unlock everything else for him. It is the thing that changes his game and changes what he's capable of doing. Changes his outlook, changes this team's ceiling. And 0 for 6 just isn't going to cut it. So we'll see what he looks like. We'll see what happens over the course of the rest of this tournament. But it might officially be time to be a little bit concerned if you weren't already. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. You can, of course, find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the fun ways to download podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, thank you for your support. Now that you're done making Locked On Magic your first listen of the day, go check out the Locked On NBA podcast because there is no offseason. Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to be the most informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. That's going to do it for us this week on Locked On Magic. Next week, we will get you set for Eurobasket. We'll recap Sunday's game between Spain and Germany, the final friendly before Eurobasket begins. Eurobasket begins next Wednesday with Germany taking on our friends from Montenegro. We'll see Nikola Vucevic. I have an interview with the German journalist as well to preview Germany in Eurobasket, talk about the impact of the Wagner brothers on German basketball, as well as the impact of the Magic heading to Germany this January. We got that ready to go next week as well before Eurobasket begins. So a lot still to get to this summer. Maybe take a break here or there, but we got a lot going on still this summer as Eurobasket gets set to begin. We get real basketball. That's a good thing. We got that coming for you. So very, very excited about that. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic. This has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.